I'm Corbett Wall with DV Auction, here with your feeder flash for Friday, April the 24th, brought to you in part by Zactran. BRD steals pounds, Zactran pounds back. Manage the risk of respiratory disease in your herd with Zactran. Remember to observe the 35-day withdrawal period following treatment. For more information, go to Zactran.com or visit with your BI representative. Dressed beef prices have launched. They hit all-time record highs middle of the week, and under normal conditions, when they'd hit a record high, a lot of times they'd fall back. But not now. These packers continue to gouge. They keep cranking up the price levels on these box beef cutouts, and your retailers have no other option than to buy them. They're not buying them in heavy volume because they've got sticker shock. They're tired of being gouged during this crisis, but they continue to purchase them, and they have no other opportunity. And it's just sickening to watch these box beef cutout values launch and your cattle prices drop. Makes you even wonder what kind of investigation's going on. Nobody really knows what's going on. They say that the PNS and the DOJ's in there investigating these packers, but it's hard to believe when these packers continue to be so bold and they just keep driving up the gouging and the manipulation on each end, and it's unbelievable. These cattle keep getting bigger. We've got cattle backed up at every level. We've got fat cattle that are ready to sell that guys keep carrying. It's going to be impossible to get through these without further trauma to the market. We've got yearlings that are ready to sell that guys keep putting it off. We've got cattle turned out on graze out wheat that are getting big. They'd like to move those, but likely they're going to end up taking those to grass. We're going to have a lot of big woody yearling feeders coming off grass end of the summer and this fall, but you can't blame them. I mean, why would they want to sell them in this market? Guys are still continuing to carry calves that they would like to get moved. A lot of our turnout dates have already passed by now, and the demand is starting to drop for these grazing type cattle, and a lot of these big calves are not really considered stockers anymore, but there's a lot of them around. There's a lot of grass available for lease around if guys want them, because so many of the guys that normally turn cattle out weren't not able to put their stocker cattle together, so they didn't end up turning cattle out. But I tell you what, this crisis just continues to avalanche down on your cattle people, and it's really a bad deal. But we are seeing decent demand for your yearling feeder cattle in your auctions this week. They've been selling pretty well all week considering everything that's going on. A lot of people are thinking that there's going to be a hole in our fat cattle supplies come October to December because our placements have been so low. We're going to see the cattle on feed report come out here on Friday. They've got your inventories for April 1st down to about 95. They've got your placement levels down to about 80% of a year ago, and it stands to reason. You look back in March, and about a week into March, we started seeing this coronavirus set in. Word got out that they were going to shut us out of the restaurants and everything, and guys didn't bring cattle to town and weren't selling cattle, so placements are going to be especially lower. We don't know if it's going to be as low as what the average of the analyst guess is at 80%, but we had the guesses range from in the 50s all the way up to the high 80s, so it'll be interesting to see how that comes out. Of course, your marketings, they've got those up to about 112, and you would expect that your marketings would have been high during the big panic buying that happened in the middle part of March, but we're in hard times, guys. That's why I keep preaching about this 30-14 movement to try to force packers to purchase at least a minimum of 30% negotiated cash sales per facility, per big packing plant, and within a 14-day or current delivery. We've got a lot of people that have signed on to this sign-on bill. We've got over 3,200 signatures now. If you haven't gone on and signed on to the 3014 sign-on letter, I would ask that you do that. We're going to take this to the legislators. We're going to get something done about this, and not 2 or 3, 4, 5 years out. we're going to get something done right now, and we're going to get it imposed on your September reauthorization of mandatory price reporting, and that's coming up in September. So I want to give a shout out to some more of the latest sign-ons to the 3014 sign-on letter, and I don't know most of these people, but I want to give them a little shout out, and I think they deserve it, and I hope a lot more of you sign on. There's no way I could to talk about all of them, but I picked a handful out. The New Mexico Cattle Growers Association, glad to have them aboard. Drennan Farms with Windsor Livestock Auction there in Missouri. We're glad to have Rodney and Jake sign on to that bill. McCracken Cattle Company in Indiana. Loy Brothers Livestock, which is Darrell Loy. They're big operators, own auction markets and everything there in Kentucky. Jones Cattle Company in Tennessee. 3 Jenkins Cattle there in Virginia. 18 Farms out of Mississippi. Tri-County Stockyards in Minnesota. It's important that we get you guys in the upper Midwest onto this. Get your cattle associations onto this, because that's going to be important. We've got very strategic legislators up in the Midwest and the upper Midwest that need to know how important this is, so we've got to have you guys up there. Hanson Horned Herefords out of South Dakota. Sanders Livestock from Georgia. Horde Farms from Iowa. They're all over the country, guys, from every corner of the country. Campwood Cattle Company out of Arizona. Calf Creek Ranch out of Arkansas. Lorenzen Ranches out of Oregon. Muleshoe Ranch out of Texas. Canyon Shadows Ranch from Oklahoma. And McClure Farms out of Illinois. And that's just a sampling of the outfits that have signed on to this bill. It's not hard to do. You can go on to U.S. Cattlemen's Association at uscattlemans.org. Go in there, go to news, drop down to the minimum negotiated cash 3014 deal, and go on there and sign on to this sign-on letter. It's not hard to do at all. Let's look at your board for Thursday. April live cattle futures down the $3 limit at $85.95. We keep thinking we've hit a bottom. I personally thought that we hit a bottom the last 3 days, and we have not hit it yet. We're down to less than $86 on your spot live cattle futures, guys. Just think about that for a minute. June live cattle down $1 at $82.92, and you go on out from there, it's down 72 cents to up 10 on some of your far outs. April feeder cattle up 95 cents. We're continuing to see good demand for your feeders, like I told you. April sitting at $119.42. May was up 60 cents at $117.27. Go out front from there, and they were down pretty hard from 82 cents to $1.75. Your fat cattle continued to trade. Your packers came out on Tuesday looking to buy cattle. Why would they do that? Because they needed some cattle. Yeah, they've got a lot of cattle that they spoke for sitting out in these feedlots, and they've been waiting for them to pick them up, some of them for 3 or 4 weeks. Are they giving them anything for that? Are they putting them back on feed, weighing them up, putting them back on feed? No, they're just asking for more time because they've got the hammer. Our live sales now on the top end are down $5 from last week. Dress sales down $8. Iowa had 3,200 confirmed sales on Thursday. Dress ranged from 148 to 160, and not any live sales in Iowa, but Nebraska 8,800 there. All of our trades been in the northern plains. Very little trade in the southern plains this week. Dress sales in Nebraska range from 148 to 160, and live sales from $95 up to the dollar. And the dollar is pretty much your established market this week on fat cattle. Kansas sold 2,900 head, a little bit at 160, and the rest of them at $1. Texas only about 600 head, but $1 a pound. Your packers are making over $1,000 a head, and everybody else is just reeling from this crisis. I've said it a million times. Every time there's a crisis or an upheaval in the market, your packers gain, your producers lose. Box beef cutout values, like I told you, they hit all-time record highs on the middle of the week, and now they're continuing to gain on that, and not just a little bit. Choice cuts on Thursday afternoon, $284.29, up $8.54. Select cuts up $11.87 at $272.89. Choice select spread of $11.40. and 121 loads of cuts, grinds, and trimmings sold at those elevated prices. Your slaughter is going to be very, very light, and we continue to see problems with the coronavirus in these packing plants. You know, it stems from your workers on the front line there. You know, they're sick. Some of them, they're scared of getting sick. They're worried. We've got the union involved now. A lot of them are seeing the advantages of not working, filing unemployment and getting the bonus there, getting their stimulus check and just staying home with their kids. But so far this week through Thursday, 339,000. That's 37,000 less than the minimal slaughter that we had last week, and 138,000 less than the same week a year ago. Let's talk about your feeder cattle markets. Your real-time index on DV auction finished today on Thursday at 120.42, down 69 cents. It had been pretty steady all week, but I tell you what, it's just we've had pretty good receipts this week. Guys that needed to sell cattle finally just had to pull the plug on them. And for the most part, prices have stayed up pretty well. We've seen our calf prices start to plummet a little bit, but and your feeders too here late in the week. But through the middle part of the week, they hung in there pretty good. But 120.42 on DV Auctions RTI. The CME Cash Feeder Cattle Index has finally caught up here late in the week. It's set at 120.41, the latest available, and it'll hang in there with the RTI until we get those cheap directs that the corporate feeders turn in late in the week, and it'll suck it back. Let's look at your big auctions on Thursday. Winter Livestock in Pratt, Kansas, big run for them, 6,000 head, and they likely wouldn't have had that many cattle under normal conditions, but being that guys are backed up and they finally saw that cattle were kind of selling decent this week, they brought them to town, 6,000 head, but the feeders sold $2 to $6 lower. Steer calves $3 to $4 lower, and the heifer calves were not well tested, but kind of a lower undertone on them. A big price on a set of yearling feeder steers, though, out of Pratt. 65 head, 814-pound steers bring 124.10, and that's pretty good. Farmers and Ranchers Livestock out of Salina, Kansas, pretty good run for them, 3,900 head. Feeder cattle there sold $3 to $8 lower. Steer calves weighing 600 to 700 pounds were $2 to $3 lower. There would have been some stockers involved in that, which kept them from going any lower than that. But your lighter calves on steers and heifers both had a lower undertone. Give you a couple of individual quotes. An auction that I have never talked about before, but Osceola, Missouri, Wheeler and Sons Livestock Auction there had a pretty good run and sold some steer calves pretty darn good there in central Missouri. 70 head, 556-pound steers bring $159. But the top quote that I saw on Thursday come out of Stockman's Livestock Exchange way up in Dickinson, North Dakota, 70 head, 827-pound steers bring $132.25. And that's your feeder flash for Friday.